This is bullshit. I don't understand how anyone could play this game and actually enjoy it.
Jesse?
This is fucking bullshit.
Jesse.
What?
It's the middle of the day. Why are you screaming?
Because I got thrown out of the flying level because I'm streaming. I'm yelling because I'm streaming, and you're interrupting me. What? What?
You do realize nobody's here, right?
What? Well, look, I'm building my audience, so I have to stream all day, every day. You know, this is my job. I'm a YouTuber and Twitch partner, okay?
Affiliate.
Well, I would be a partner if I grow my audience out, Jillian.
So then why don't you try making a different kind of video?
A different kind of video, huh? Why are you still here? Get out of here! Get out of here! I'm streaming!
You know, just because he doesn't have to work doesn't mean all of us don't have to work.
Chrono Trigger was developed by Squaresoft and released in 1995 on the Super Nintendo, and was the brainchild of Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of Final Fantasy, Yuji Horii, creator of Dragon Quest, and Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball. Now that we got the usual shit out of the way, let's move on to an extremely accurate review.
I was about 7 years old when Chrono Trigger was released, and honestly, I couldn't give a shit less about the game. I was far too young to sink my teeth into an RPG like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. We actually referred to them as number games because we didn't even know what an RPG was. We just saw your damage was numbers, 14. We were just completely out of our element. It wasn't until 1996 that a specific game came out that was the gateway game into what is now my tremendous RPG addiction. But that's not why we're here.
Okay, everybody. We are going to be entering some spoilers, all the time, 24/7 for this review. So if you haven't played Chrono Trigger, and you don't want to start posting comments about how I should have given you a spoiler warning, here's your spoiler warning. Leave now, come back, watch the review. So let's move on with some Chrono Trigger. The story begins when Chrono's peaceful sleep is disturbed by his mom and she tosses him out of the house. I guess the divorce was rough on her. So is trying to find a date when you're a single woman with a teenage son who occupies the only bed in the house. Anyway, as you're out and about as Chrono, you'll quickly find out that today is the day of the Millennial Fair. So what's a guy to do? Chrono pounds drinks, busts up a fucking robot, makes a cat friend, steals an old man's lunch, then bumps into a cutie named Marl with severe daddy issues, and goes on a date.
Yeah, I said Marl, not Marley. And I'm also going to pronounce it as Scala, not Shala. So, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to give you a couple seconds to post some comments. Okay, it doesn't take that long to type you're stupid, right? Okay, good. Alright, that's enough.
After all that partying, you finally meet up with Chrono's bi-curious childhood best friend Luca. Marl, who is absolutely not the princess, and resident party girl, demands to take part in Luca's exhibit, and in a flash, vanishes leaving only her pendant behind. Good guy Chrono, with a small push from Luca, picks up the pendant and jumps into JRPG action and is off to save the day. After a few minutes of exploring, it becomes wildly apparent that you've gone back in time. When you meet up with Marl, you find out she was confused with the missing Queen Lean, and the search has been called off. The reunion is cut short, though, when Father Time course corrects and Marl is ripped out of existence. With Queen Lean never being rescued, Marl, or Princess Nadia, will never be born. It's here you're introduced to one of the main themes, and in my opinion, antagonists of Chrono Trigger. Time. The game is subtly letting you know decisions matter, and that's usually why people say they wish they could go back, to make better decisions. Decisions made in the past will inevitably have an effect on the future, and the beginning of the game cleverly teaches you this with Marl's disappearance. Selfishly open a chest in the past? Well, guess what? It's not going to be there in the future. Can't access an area in the future? Get some help in the past. Spirited away the kingdom's princess? Sentenced to death? What? That's right. All your hard work and selfless heroism is paid off with a death sentence. And, once again, your decisions in the past affect your future. And I'll do it again! If you're a complete dick, you'll be sentenced to death in 3 days. If you actually took your time and made some right choices, you'll be cleared of your wrongdoings and sentenced to 3 days in solitary.
Alright, so I feel like canonically, Chrono should be sentenced to death in the courtroom because Marl's reaction to a 3-day sentence is a lot.
So, either way, you're thrown in a cell, and once again, your choices here matter. If you wait out the sentence for 3 days, Luca will barge in and save you. But, if you're anything like me... Jailbreak!
Okay. I don't want this review to be me just hitting every point of the story, so we're gonna fast forward like it's New Game Plus. Restart the game.
As Chrono and Luca escape, Marl joins them and they enter a time gate and are sent to a desolate future. They find a computer terminal, and Marl, taking on the persona of Dee Dee from Dexter's lab, pushes one button and it changes everything. 1999, the day of Lavos. Their world is destroyed by something that explodes from the Earth's surface. This is their future, our future. And like all good JRPG protagonists, it's now their job to save the world.
Now this is where the game takes right the fuck off. So let's talk about the controls of Chrono Trigger real quick, since I'm currently playing it on camera. It's pretty good. I definitely like the Super Nintendo controls. I think it's a much better fit for the game as opposed to the...
Hey, how's the review coming along?
Are you fucking serious? I'm mid-review. I don't understand.
You do realize that nobody believes you're actually playing the game, let alone on the Super Nintendo, right?
Alright, how dare you, okay? It's not about what I'm saying to my viewers. It's about the props and the setup, and has nothing to do with the fact that I spent hours picking this game apart, alright? It's about visualization so I can get the recognition I deserve.
I'm going back to work.
You'll never understand the importance of what I'm doing here. What the hell do reviewers talk about now? The characters?
Your main team consists of 7 characters, all of them falling into some pretty standard JRPG tropes. Chrono is your standard issue silent protagonist. He is your link to the world and is the catalyst of your actual decisions. And now if any of you know me, you know I hate the silent protagonist. Especially in a narratively driven game, but in Chrono Trigger it works. The game is about choices. Choices you as the player make. I mean Christ. Chrono is killed at one point in the game, and you can actually choose to not bring him back. Marl, the love interest and princess who somehow is able to travel the world as an only child. I wish I had more to say about her, though she has some really good character development towards the end of the game and you learn more about her past, but she really is here to be Chrono's girlfriend. Oh, and to push that button to see the Day of Lavos. Bulma, the childhood best friend and resident genius of the party. Luke is the main reason our characters get to utilize time travel to begin with, and oh boy, does time not like her. Robo the Robot. He's the fish out of water character trying to find his place, feeling rejected from his Robo Bros. His journey through time with the others humanizes him and is honestly one of the greatest aspects of his character development. Frog, the Knight, who is also an anthropomorphic frog. Frog's real name is Glenn, and after his friend Cyrus is murdered, he is cursed and transformed into a frog by the fiend Lord Magus. Frog, or should I say Glenn, failed. There are no other words to describe what happened other than he failed. Though admittedly better with a sword, Glenn was a coward who knew fear would take him when it came to battle. Cyrus saw something powerful in him, but he couldn't bring it out.
Now, the game doesn't go too deep into the past of Glenn and Cyrus, but I like to imagine that Glenn's self-doubt prevented him from training as much. So when Cyrus finally met Magus in battle, Glenn couldn't stop Magus from killing his best friend. And now he looks at it as his cowardice, not pacifism, is what led to his friend's death. And as the most accurate reviewer on YouTube, I'd say that checks out.
So you find Frog, who's been hiding out in the Cursed Woods for like 10 years with a broken Masamune. The visual representation of his broken spirit. Now I know I said Frog failed, but he's not a failure. You slap that Masamune together with some Gorilla Glue, Frog's theme plays, and he leaps into action. Ayla strong, grr. Moving on.
Wait. There's more to her character. Relax. I got this.
Ayla is more than just strong. She represents a sort of innocence and optimism that balances out the party. Chrono is you. You have no idea what's going on. And Marl's pretty much in the same boat as Chrono. Luca and Robo are the thinkers, the logical ones looking for reason to rule the day. Then you have Frog, and we just went over him in some serious detail, so we can just, leave it at you have Frog. Ayla's go with her gut style is the much needed levity that the group so desperately needs.
Okay, so we've got one more edgelord party member who is inextricably linked to the most important character, in my eyes, of the Chrono series. So we're going to skip over him for now because I feel like you can't speak about him without speaking about her. And we're going to go over the supporting cast and villains who actually matter to the game.
So I spent literal hours trying to figure out who I should spend the time to talk about in this section. What made the decision so difficult is that almost every character in the world of Chrono Trigger makes the said world feel alive. From larger characters like Queen Azala, who's the opposing force to Ayla in prehistory, who also knows the red star is going to crash into the planet and wishes to use the coming ice age to wipe out the apes, Azala believes the world belongs to the reptites who wish to live more directly connected to the planet. To even smaller characters like the mighty Tabin, who, when you visit him, he's always working on making new equipment for his daughter, which makes fucking sense.
So I know I said we were going to talk about the other characters, but I'm a fucking mess, and I've never done this before, so we're going to quickly discuss the world of Chrono Trigger. Because honestly, they're so deeply entwined with one another that I don't think you can talk about one without at least referencing the other.
The maps and towns of Chrono Trigger are not large at all, and when you pick up the Epoch, which is essentially your airship, the world really opens up and shrinks at the same time. I think the game handles this brilliantly though. By giving us multiple time periods to visit, the game developers were able to focus less on making giant worlds and focus more on making smaller maps and areas with more focus on the characters. Honestly, it's the small things like bringing each new party member to visit Chrono's mom and she welcomes them to her home, or that once you get the seed in the future, later on when you visit the Tran Dome, you see a new person who is sitting down next to a sprout. He ran his ass over there quick, but this shows the sowing of seeds, the spreading of hope. And one of my favorites is the bickering brothers of 600 AD. Yup, the captain of the knights and the head chef. I have two brothers, and these two go back and forth like real brothers. But in the end, they're family, and that's a bond that's never broken. Why else does the world feel real? Because in this game, your choices actually matter and affect the world you live in.
Don't want to save Chrono?
Fuck 'em!
Want to make Magus pay for his crimes?
Fuck 'em!
Feel like keeping Lara in that chair? Ooh.
Regardless of your choices, the world is living and breathing and follows the rules the game itself sets, that what happens in the past affects the future. And that is so impressive, especially for a game that came out in 1995 on the Super Nintendo.
Alright. I've gushed enough about the world. Let's get back into the characters.
So like I said, hours were spent trying to pinpoint the most important of the supporting cast and villains, and funnily enough, I needed only look in antiquity, in the Kingdom of Zeal. Let's start with the three gurus of Zeal. So you've got Melchior, the Guru of Life, Balthazar, the Guru of Reason, and Gaspar, the Guru of Time. These three are some of the most important characters in the Chronoverse. Of the three, let's look at Melchior first. He seems to be the lesser guru in terms of story importance, and his attitude and demeanor don't change much from Zeal to when he's sent to the present. But let that sink in. He is sent to the beautiful and peaceful present. Balthazar ends up in the destroyed future, and Gaspar to the fucking end of time. After speaking out against Queen Zeal, Melchior is imprisoned on the Mountain of Woe, and it's actually Scala who urges the party to save him, to enlist his aid to stop the Mammon Machine, since he was in fact the designer and architect of it. After you end up saving Melchior, he gives you the ruby knife that was created from the same red stone as the Mammon Machine, in hopes that using it could stop it before it's too late.
So, it doesn't actually work, but the dagger ends up absorbing the power of the Mammon Machine and becomes the Masamune. So, I guess Melchior kind of did create the Masamune?
And you really have to appreciate the irony of it all, that the same weapon created by Melchior is the weapon that was used to try to kill Magus. Magus, who is Janus, the very same Janus that Melchior tried to save and was sucked up into the vortex that flung him into present day. So now we move on to Balthazar. When we first meet him, he's working on what looks like a new in the Keeper's Dome. After that, we don't actually see much of him. His story is by far the saddest of the three, though. Balthazar thought of nothing more than getting back home to the Kingdom of Zeal, and more importantly, he wished more than anyone else other than Janus to save Scala. In doing so, he created the Winds of Time, the Epoch, but he was losing hope in his mind, stuck in this lost future. With his life nearing its end, and in his last hours, he implanted his thoughts and memories into an artificial new to await the one who can open the door and claim the Epoch. His final part in the story takes place when you need his help to climb Death Peak to save Chrono. After he offers you his help, he asks you to please shut down the new to let it rest. And thus, the Guru of Reason was correct. Life in fact does begin and end with new. Sort of. Until Chrono Cross.
So I know I shouldn't, but a lot of this review, I'm drawing on my knowledge of the events of this game. A game hated by many, but I think it's actually a really good sequel to Chrono Trigger. I don't know. If this does well, I guess we can jump into that game in detail if you guys want. But for now, I have to try to stop doing that and focus more on Chrono Trigger.
The last of the three gurus is Gaspar, also known as the Old Man. In terms of the story of Chrono Trigger, he would be the most important of the trio. He is flung to the end of time to nothingness. It's there he meets Specchio, and together they build this small area and get to listen to the funkiest theme in the game. You're first introduced to him as the Old Man at the end of time. He acts as your guide through the story. Speaking to him keeps you on track of where to go and what to do. He even unloads all of the game's side quests to you prior to the final battle with Lavos. Not only that, he's the one that gives you the time egg, the catalyst for bringing Chrono back. I'd say that's pretty fucking important to the story of Chrono Trigger. It's a little unclear how the end of time works though. Gaspar talks about witnessing events and guiding others who have ended up there. Does he age? Does time move for him? I'm assuming the end of time means exactly that. It's the end of time. Time no longer flows.
This may be the biggest plot hole in Chrono Trigger. Gaspar clearly has access to the time gates that Chrono and the gang open up through their travels, which means Gaspar could travel back to Zeal, save his fellow gurus, and prevent some of the disasters that have happened thanks to Lavos. But no, I'm the arbiter of the end of time. Messing with time is dangerous. So you have to leave it up to, fucking teenagers.
Chrono Trigger has its fair share of bosses, but we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about Chrono Trigger's actual villains. The true villain of Chrono Trigger is, to put it simply, a giant tick. Lavos crashes into the planet, burrows in, sucks on the life of the planet to feed itself, and when he's good and goddamn ready, he explodes from the surface, destroying everything in his wake. Lavos then produces super spawns that we have the pleasure of fighting on Death Peak. Now, what's unclear is what happens to Lavos after he lets the planet have it. I've read a lot of theories and speculations, but we can discuss that in a podcast. It's also never stated where Lavos came from, just that it came from the stars. Is Lavos the creation of some sick alien race, or does a fucking planet of Lavos monsters just exist out there? That's actually the most frightening thing you can think of in terms of the Chrono Trigger story. Interestingly enough, the final battle against Lavos' core, he's not the giant tick monster you're used to seeing. He's some kind of duck, astronaut, mutant man? But they do throw in a line stating that Lavos actually looks like the amalgamation of everything on the planet. But what did this thing do for millions of years? Either way, Lavos is a mystery. The only thing that's known for sure is Lavos is strong enough and clearly intelligent enough to shape the lives of the entire planet in the Chrono universe.
So I could go more into Lavos and the splinter of Lavos that fell off of him, that is dubbed the Frozen Flame in Chrono Cross, but I won't. The truth is, Lavos is an extremely mysterious villain. We don't really know more than Lavos wants to feed on the planet, breed, and probably send those spawn off to other planets while he rules the roost till the end of time. But, you know what? We cannot talk about Lavos without talking about Queen fucking Zeal.
Queen Zeal is, you guessed it, the queen of the magical kingdom of Zeal. Under the rule of Her Majesty, the people first come into the possession of magic. It's not really explained how she came into contact with Lavos, but what is explained is that Lavos has an influence over the queen. From what Chrono and the gang gather, the queen wasn't always like this. What I find absolutely fascinating about Queen Zeal is her relationship with Lavos. To the queen, Lavos is her answer to power and immortality, and she reveres him as such. And in return, it looks like, unlike anyone else, Lavos doesn't mind having her around.
Lavos is a master manipulator, for sure. But I don't think he can control the mind of somebody. You don't really get a sense of that in any of the games, to be honest with you. I like to think of it more as Lavos can bring out the worst desires in somebody, or the worst traits in someone, much like the Masamune does in Chrono Cross. Now, we never actually see Queen Zeal in the past. We hear that Mother has changed, or the Queen has lost her mind, but maybe the Queen was always kind of a stuck-up bitch, and Lavos just brought out even more of that. But I think what makes this more fascinating, and would have been far more interesting, is what if Lavos just enjoyed having Queen Zeal around? That would make his connection to another character later in the game and series that much more interesting.
Anyways, Queen Zeal succeeds in building the Black Omen, and with the help of Lavos, rules over all of time for like 23 minutes, before the Chrono Gang takes her down and she summons her boyfriend Lavos. Maybe that's it though. Maybe she wanted a flying machine of death so she could go to other worlds with her lover Lavos.
No, that can't be possible. No, that's got the same chance of happening as Dalton becoming an actual main villain of the series.
Dalton is a real son of a bitch. In the original Super Nintendo release of Chrono Trigger, he's just a sort of fourth wall breaking comic relief villain. A minor antagonist that just annoys the party, but does put wings on the Epoch. But the DS version really turns him into an unforgivable villain. You'll find Dalton again, and he will lament about losing all of his dreams because of Chrono. After the fight, he swears he will raise up the most powerful military in port and crush Guardia. In the PlayStation version, we're introduced to not just some sick loading times, but also some good cutscenes. And in one scene in particular, in the year 1005 AD, we see the fall of the Kingdom of Guardia. Two shadows clash. The shadow of what looks like a soldier, the other, the shadow of a man with a cape and long hair.
He did it. The son of a bitch did it. And you get nothing. You get no justice. In the events of Chrono Cross, poor is a military superpower. So Dalton did it. He crushed Guardia. He's probably the one that stole the Masamune and imbued it with evil and ended up cursing it. And he's the reason Chrono and Marl are dead. Now, I know it's not stated. The fates of Chrono and Marl are sort of unknown, but at the end of the day, when a kingdom falls, so does its king and queen. Okay, so at this point, from now in the past, I can hear you in the future furiously typing, Exodus, you forgot two major characters! And I didn't. I just want to leave them for last because they are so important to the story. And now we'll address them. Let's talk about Scala and Magus.
Scala is the eldest of the two children of Queen Zeal. Like her mother, she has a tremendous amount of aptitude for magic. But unlike her mother, she is a kind soul. We aren't given much information about her past, but we can see that she is loved and cares deeply for her people. Even the Earthbound ones, who have no magical affinity, those who were cast to live on the surface in the caves of Algeti love her. She does not hesitate to visit them and interact with them. She even goes as far as to say that the only difference between the Earthbound ones and those living in the Sky Kingdom of Zeal is that the latter are puppets of Lavos. Scala isn't blind to her mother's change in attitude, but even though she's being used as essentially a battery to power the Mammon Machine, Scala's still torn about what to do about her mother. Conversely, her brother Janus is a dick. Janus is much younger than Scala and very much introverted. His only two friends in Zeal are his sister and his cat Alphador. Unlike Scala, he's less forgiving of his mother, stating that she is his mother no more. Watching the abuse of their people by the hands of his mother, Janus refuses to actually even wield his magical abilities, even though there are whispers that his magical prowess surpasses that of the gurus and even Princess Scala. On the day that Lavos is successfully summoned, and absolutely all hell breaks loose, Janus is thrown to the year 600 AD where he meets Ozzy for the first time. I'm assuming he just fucking vaporizes those imps. Both Scala and Janus were clearly abused by their mother, thus turning Scala into somewhat of a mother figure for Janus. So imagine, you're torn away from the only world you ever knew, a world where you were a prince, and end up in a far-off time with nothing. Janus lost his home, his family, everything. It's then he decides that he will have his revenge on Lavos, no matter the cost. He casts away his name and heritage and takes on the name Magus. That anger and hatred for his mother, Lavos, and his own powerlessness to save his sister manifest in Magus. He becomes the Fiend Lord and wages war on the humans in the year of 600 AD. But truthfully, Magus didn't care. He didn't care about the fiends, the humans, anyone. He had one goal: to destroy Lavos. Magus battles it out with Chrono and the gang while biding his time to summon Lavos, and when he does, a massive gate opens and throws everyone through it. It's here Magus finds himself back home in antiquity. With his knowledge of the events that are to come, he cloaks up and leverages this information to get closer to the Queen. You catch glimpses of Janus surfacing during certain events involving Scala. But in the end, Janus fails to save his sister, minus a few key differences. It all plays out as it did before. The Gurus, Janus, and Scala are all lost to time. Magus is nothing short of tenacious, and even after the team succeeds in stopping Lavos, without a word, he's off to find Scala, who at this point is still unaccounted for.
Okay, so I could go on and on about Scala and Janus, and about how Mass Behind Magus is a cleverly written and deeply poetic tragedy, but we need to get to getting. But before we do, I'd like to address one plot point that the Chrono Trigger DS game brought up.
After you beat Lavos in the DS version, 3 vortexes appear in antiquity, the present, and the future. After going through the best that additional content has to offer, you head back to the end of time and Gaspar says a powerful force is coming from the goddamn bucket of doom. Well, Chrono and the gang gear up and head into the bucket where they run into Magus, but not the Magus who's on our team, a future Magus who has now found Lavos and Scala. After a pretty tough battle with the new titled Dream Devourer, which is Scala attached to Lavos, Janus' voice reaches her. At this point, we don't know how long she's been there, but she does say that she wished for this, for it all to end. And in her last act of kindness, Scala sends the team away and tells her brother to live his life and that he's not strong enough to save her. In the dark void between time, Magus wonders what it was all for if he can't save his sister. He just wishes to throw it all away. You're then shown a glimpse of Magus walking in an unknown area. He's no memories of who he is, just that he knows, he feels that he was searching for something and that he must find out what it is.
If you can watch that and still sit there and say that Chrono Cross is not a sequel to Chrono Trigger, and that Guile isn't Magus, come on! Let's just keep going.
On the surface, the story of Chrono Trigger seems simple enough. Small town boy meets girl gets ripped out of the timeline, boy saves girl, giant tick monster threatens all life, boy saves world. In all honesty, it isn't the most complicated story until Chrono Cross comes along and just fucking throws the goddamn book at you. They did a great job of keeping the plot on track and the narrative tight. So many RPGs have a tendency to lose their pacing or to get involved in too many side quests that take you out of the game. For the most part, the game's side quests are dropped on you at essentially the end. This allows the player to make a choice: go whoop on Lavos, or dive deeper into the world and the characters of Chrono Trigger. It's in these side quests that you're given insight into your characters, and for some, you even find the resolution they so desperately need. Frog! We're also given insight into the most mysterious premise in Chrono Trigger, the Entity. After Robo volunteers to stay in the Middle Ages and help Fiona regrow the forest, you travel back to the present and pick your boy up. After starting him back up, the team ends up in a forest clearing and a discussion begins. A deep discussion about life and death, about how your life flashes before your eyes before you die, and Chrono can't really put any input into the conversation because he's a silent protagonist and he's kind of sleeping even though he's the only one in the party that's died and his life possibly flashed before his eyes, and Robo theorizes that the cause of the time gates is an entity who wanted us to see the events of the planet. Then at the end of the game, Luca states that she feels this mysterious entity is finally at rest. I've both read and heard a few theories on who the entity actually is, but I feel two really resonate with the story. The more obvious choice, and it's really force-fed to you, is that it's the planet itself. The will of the planet opened these gates to lead Chrono and his gang throughout their journey in order to prevent Lavos from killing him. Thus the whole life flashing before your eyes statement by Robo. You are literally witnessing the life of the planet flashing before your eyes. I think another interesting theory, but one that holds less water, is that the entity is Scala, doing her best to lead them around to try to stop Lavos and save her. Like I said, it's not as grounded as the entity being the planet itself, and this is more grounded in the knowledge of Chrono Cross, but I like this. In theory.
Oh my god, I'm so tired. No one told me videos like this would be... hey. So, if you've made it this far in the video, you can tell that I think Chrono Trigger is a fantastic game. But there's one aspect of the game that if you're going to talk about everything they did right, that you really need to talk about. And it's something that they nailed, especially for its time. And that's the combat.
Chrono Trigger's combat takes the standard issue turn-based combat and adds a great strategic flair to it. Your position in battle and who you bring to the battle matters. If enemies cluster together, certain techs have an area of effect that when you select a target, you will also hit the surrounding enemies. My only real issue with the combat is that you, the player, are not in control of battle position. A few techs are based off of not how close together the enemies are, but the surrounding area of the character. I think this game's combat would have been absolutely perfect if they allowed you to move your party members around the battlefield. Not only this, but each character brings something special to the table. Gonna use a team of Chrono, Luca, and Magus? Well, guess what? No healing! Traveling around with Chrono, Marl, and Frog? Better hope you don't need to hit someone with a fire spell. In addition, each and every character doesn't just have a single tech, but they have double and triple techs. These double and triple techs are insanely powerful in terms of damage output, but they also have ones that heal the entire party and cure them of any status ailments. The only character who doesn't follow the rule is Magus. Magus can't get close to anyone, so he's only involved in triple techs that you need items to actually use the skills.
No amount of fucking therapy in the world could get Magus comfortable enough to open up to someone enough in order to perform it. Stop it!
Something else this game absolutely nails is its music. I don't have to talk too deeply about this, since I'm sure most people watching this have heard the music of the game and understand where I'm coming from. Nobuo Uematsu composed a few tracks for Chrono Trigger, but it was Yasunori Mitsuda who composed the majority of the music for the game. Mitsuda had something to prove, and he proved it. There isn't a track in this game that doesn't fit, or that doesn't stay with you beyond your time playing the game. Yasunori Mitsuda, thank you so much for the music you created. If you're not moved by the music in this game, well, then you must be a Lavos spawn.
I think what makes Chrono Trigger a timeless classic is that it allows us as the player to fantasize what it would be like to go back in time and change something. I know there's plenty of times I wish I can go back to and change, including the making of this video. But what Chrono Trigger does right is it also shows you that there's a cost, there's an outcome, for better or for worse, that changes when you do that.
I love this game so much, and for me, it's my own personal epoch. When I play this game, I'm taken back to such a happy time in my life, and no matter why or when you play this game, I think it will always find a special place in the heart of the player. I mean, when I decided I would take a swing at reviewing games, Chrono Trigger was the first one that popped into my mind. I wanted to bring more to a review than just information, but about my experience with the game as well as convey how much I truly love this game, and I certainly hope you enjoyed it. None of us know what the future holds, but maybe on this channel, it will be filled with more game reviews.
Oh, Jesus, it's finally done. What a fucking to-do that was. But this is it. This is my final chance at fulfilling my fantasy of being a famous YouTuber and streamer. I guess you could say it's my final fantasy. Yeah.
You should have reviewed Final Fantasy!
Hey, thanks so much for watching through my first ever game review. It took a lot of time to make this video, so please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, you're always welcome to come hang out with me on my Twitch channel. The links for everything are below. Thank you again, and keep on laughing.